In the skies over Russia, one of the world's most advanced and lethal fighter aircraft displays its fearful capabilities. The new generation Sukhoi fighters are causing enormous consternation in Western military circles. And they'll soon be operating in Australia's so-called sphere of influence.
It's a formidable weapon, flies higher, faster, further, it turns better, and it's got better weapons.
Okay, you ready to go?
Absolutely.
Righty-ho.
Up against the Sukhois is Australia's weapon of choice, the Super Hornet. Yet there are grave concerns about whether it's up to the job.
In most of the engagement scenarios that we could postulate, the Super Hornet would get shot down. It's as simple as that.
Australia is the only country in the world to have purchased the Super Hornet outside America.
I cannot believe that we would waste $6.6 billion of the taxpayers' money on an aeroplane that has no practical use against any modern, new generation fighter coming into our arc of interest to our north.
You defend Australia by denying our air and maritime approaches to hostile ships and aircraft, and these days the way you dominate sea space is to dominate the air over it.
Tonight on Four Corners, Flying Blind, a story of politics, money and the defence of Australia. Washington DC, 2002. John Howard's in town to meet the President. The Prime Minister's come to collect for his unwavering support in the war on terror. He wants a free trade agreement with the US.
Just stop right here if you would. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming by. And we're delighted and honored to have a delegation from Australia headed by the distinguished Prime Minister John Howard. And we're delighted to see our good friend again, doing a great job.
But John Howard also had a far less public meeting to attend. Just around the corner from the White House at the Willard Hotel, the Prime Minister sat down with representatives of the giant US military plane maker Lockheed Martin. The meeting was top secret. John Howard was about to launch Australia on its biggest ever defence acquisition program, a $16 billion gamble. The Washington meeting rocked large sections of the Australian military. It was the first of many decisions which seemed to bypass the normally intensive investigations that governments put themselves through when making multi-billion-dollar defence acquisitions. At the Willard Hotel, John Howard committed Australia to the development of the Joint Strike Fighter, the JSF-35, to replace a plane which had been defending Australia for the past 3 decades, the F-111.
These F-111s are the aircraft on which Australia will rely as its main strike force at least until 1985.
For more than 30 years, the F-111 has ensured Australia's air superiority in the region. In aviation circles, the F-111 is considered a freak. Affectionately nicknamed the Pig by its pilots, there are only 1 or 2 planes in the world even today that can fly as far, as fast and deliver as massive a bomb load as the F-111. In 1999, 25 years after the F-111 entered service, Australia started the preliminary groundwork looking for a replacement for its fighter bombers. There was no hurry. The F-111s were in tip-top shape and weren't due to retire until 2020, 2 decades away. Whatever was to replace the F-111 would have to be an extraordinary aircraft.
The highest single priority for Australian defence capability was to ensure that we maintained a very substantial dominance of our air and maritime approaches, and that air combat capability, strike capability, were the number one capability priorities for that region.
Maintaining Australia's air superiority wouldn't come cheap. Australia was prepared to shell out up to $16 billion for new planes.
Le Rafale est le seul avion au monde à utiliser le système de...
9 nations, including Britain with its Eurofighter, France with the Rafale, and the United States with its Joint Strike Fighter, the JSF-35, had started competing for the prize to sell their planes. It was shaping up to be a bare-knuckled fight. But you've been on the receiving end of the sales pitch. How strong are they? What kind of tricks do they get up to?
Well, they are very forceful, obviously, because they're in a very competitive business where a single sale can make or break a huge project.
Le catapultage du Rafale s'opère par la jambe de train avant.
The huge French aircraft manufacturer Dassault pitched its frontline fighter, the Rafale. In Paris, Dassault's representative, Daniel Fremont, prepared for the upheaval of moving to Australia for a 5-year campaign to sell the French plane. He was looking forward to living in Sydney. Well, you know, Paris is pretty beautiful as well.
Yes, it's a beautiful city, but Sydney is a city which is more spread out, and you have this wonderful bay. I like the sea, of course.
The former French Navy pilot was preparing for a long stay in Australia.
Australia had declared that they wanted a lot of aircraft. I think that's we were talking about 100 aircraft, and a deal of 100 fighter aircraft is something very important in one country. So it's very likely that Australia will be the biggest or one of the biggest customers. And I think this is why that was really a very important competition for everybody.
On June the 27th, 2002, Fremont arrived in Canberra, unaware of the meeting between John Howard and Lockheed Martin in Washington 2 weeks earlier. The Dassault representative had barely driven in from the airport when he received a call. The then Defence Minister, Senator Robert Hill, was giving a press conference.
What we're announcing today is that we've decided to, as a government, to participate in the system development and demonstration phase of the Lockheed Martin Joint Strike Fighter, and ultimately this will be the largest military procurement in Australia's history.
Well, I think at the first I had no reaction. I was so shocked that I could not believe it. That's just as simple as that.
The government announcement was a bombshell. All the competitors could go home. Their planes wouldn't even be looked at. Their proposals wouldn't be considered. The Howard government had decided to completely abandon the decades-long practice of a considered tendering process and put its money on a paper plane.
Multiple in-flight data links between the 4 aircraft.
The JSF was still on the drawing board. Have you ever known a decision made like that before?
No, I don't think on a capability of that scale to foreclose a competitive process in that way was certainly unprecedented in my experience.
We were expecting something difficult. We were expecting to be analysed, scrutinized very deeply to show that what we were selling was really what was expected by the Australian Air Force. So we were expecting something tough.
And what did you get?
Well, we got something tough, but very quick.
For Senator Hill, the JSF deal was simply a bargain. The development costs alone were $20 billion. Yet Australia would only have to contribute $150 million.